Good afternoon, good evening, those of you on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. We thank God for you, and you. Let us pray. Thank you for a beautiful day. Yes, a beautiful evening, a beautiful night. Some of you have slept well, some of you have slept good. There's no peace to the wicked. How can you have a peaceful and restful sleep if you're wicked? Your mind is steadily plagued with how you can manipulate and get over and subdue those who are innocent, even those who are righteous, those who don't even have you on their mind, but yet you have them on your mind. And their mind is full of just how they should eat, sleep, and wherewith they shall be clothed, many of them. But we thank God that for the Congo, that these things are going to be like a dream, a nightmare long past for them. And we praise God for that, and that their enemy is going to be subdued and put under. But to have the decency even to bury their brothers if they have to. Yes. And we thank God for that things are underway. God has stirred up the people, and people are being stirred up to protest. People are being stirred up to cause these things to change. And even the president, you either step down or you're going to have to move out the way some kind of way because your heart is wicked. But either way, God's going to move. He's going to have his way. Yes, and that is all I'm going to say about that. And most holy Sanini Nanini, we ask you that you have those even in the Congo go back to what they once believed and what they knew before even Leopold got a hold of them and deceived them into Christianity, even to worship of Tata and Zambi. Yes, even that Old Testament way, that old landmark of their ancestor, even Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, get them back to that place, we ask you, most holy Sanini Nanini, even Tata and Zambi. Yes, and those of us who are elsewhere, we ask you to deal with us that we might do those things that are pleasing to you. Even your laws, statutes, and commandments, and your ordinances. We thank you for those. And we ask you to deal with us on those that we might know and understand you according to your word, that your way is fair. Yes. And, yes, with this prayer, we ask, deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me in my seat forever, that we go not astray from henceforth and forevermore. Jubilees Chapter 12, verse 20, a prayer of Abram. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, we're here. Now, in verse 13 of whoever wrote this book called Matthew, it reads this way. Enter ye at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. Many are there be which go in therein. 14, because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth to life, and few that be that find it. These are such profound words. What is the way that leadeth to life? Even his laws, statutes, commandments, and his ordinances. And many have lost their way, and few have even found that way again. Very few. Many are going on the broad way, which is Christianity, Islam, and all kind of other religions and denominations of the government of Jacob, or the Most High. But all these stem from the law, commandments, statutes, and ordinances of the Most High. I don't care what you read, how mad you get. It comes from God. It comes from Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. It comes from him. Whether you call them Islam or not, or whether you call them whatever. These people you read about in Matthew and in your Quran are they're prophets. That's all they are. They're prophets. Whatever they prophesied of, if it come to pass, that makes them a prophet. But else we should go by the law, statutes, commandments, and ordinances of the Most High. Yes, doing what he commanded us to do. And this is the straight gate that few have found that which was lost, to tell you the truth. Now, we're in the book of Jubilees chapter, we ended with chapter 39 and verse 7. It was in verse 7, where is this old woman was trying to entice 17-year-old Joseph at the time when he was taken into Egypt to Potiphar's house, his wife. And she enticed him for a whole year. And he never gave in to her. And finally she decided to embrace him, and he snatched away from her, and she held on to his garment, and she lied on him to her husband, and her husband, without even considering the matter, went head forth and threw him into prison because his wife said so. Doesn't that remind you of, just to name one, Emmett Till, because she said so? Many of Jacob have been deleted and demised in hideous ways because she said so. And because the husbands of these women, or the men of these women, did not like those who did not look like them. They were less than them because she said so. Take that to heart. Think about it. Now in verse 7, Joseph remembered these words and refused to lie with her, and she besought him for a year, but he refused and would not listen. But she embraced him and held him fast in the house in order to force him to lie with her, and closed the doors of the house and held him fast. But he left his garment in her hands and broke through the door and fled from her presence. In other words, this is not about your husband. It's not about because she said so. It's because I believe God. My daddy told me about God, and I'm not going to do it. No. He said my soul will be forever lost. So I'd rather for my flesh to be dead than my soul forever lost before the Most High. Yes. And then verse 10, and the woman saw that he would not lie with her. Yeah, I don't want you. You ain't my wife. You his wife. And she calumniated him in the presence of his Lord, that meaning owner, saying, your Hebrew servant, whom you loveth, sought to force me so that he might lie with me. Well, why is the clothes in your hand? And it came to pass, I lifted up my voice, and he fled and left his garments in my hand when I held him, and he brake through the door. No, she wanted some kind of way. She might have wanted him to lay with her and get caught with him laying on top of her or whatever, how she was going to manipulate that. But her lie just stood with him because he had, sometimes we have to, not sometimes, all the time, we must weigh the character of people before we make judgment. Not the color of their skin, as our opposites have done, but the character of the person. The woman can be wicked as I don't know what, and the man could be just as innocent as I don't know who. And many times because of that, many have been demised, even neighborhoods, because of the jealousy. They carried on their jealousy to use it in a way to delete and remove those of a different hue whom they hated, not knowing that many of them were Jacob. Now, in verse 11, the Egyptian saw the garment of Joseph. He just took it upon himself, broken the door. The garment and the broken door. And he heard the words of his wife and cast Joseph into prison in the place where the prisoners were kept, whom the king imprisoned. Now, he got to look at it. If you see this young man, he's not looking at your wife in any kind of way during the time that you have him in his house. He hasn't said anything cross in the front of you and to his wife that she could complain about. There is no history of nothing until he left. That is something to consider. Now, verse 12. Well, let's finish this up. And cast Joseph into prison, into the place where the prisoners were kept, whom the king imprisoned. He threw them in jail. Just on a word and a piece of cloth in his hands, not considering the character of the two. I'm sure she had a history that he knows of, and he knows of Joseph. Now in verse 12, he was there in prison, and the I am gave Joseph Pharaoh in the sight of the chief of the prison guards and compassion before him. And he saw that the I am was with him, and that the I am made all that he did to prosper. Yes. 13. And he committed all things into his hand. The same thing as Potiphar. In other words, you got a problem. You're biased. You're a bigot. You rather believe a lie than believe the truth. Or even weigh the situation out righteously. And he committed all things into his hand. And the chief of the prison guard knew of nothing that was with him, for Joseph did everything, and the I am perfected it. Now, I'm sure the prison guard said, this man didn't do what they said he did, but I got to do what I got to do anyway. Some don't care, some do. Now, 14, and he remained there 2 years, and in those days Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was wroth against his 2 eunuchs, against the chief butler and the chief baker, and he put them in ward in the house of the chief cook in prison where Joseph was kept. And the chief of the prison guards appointed Joseph to serve them, and he served before them. Okay, he served the prison guards. And they both dreamed dreams of the chief butler and the chief baker, and they told it to Joseph. And he interpreted to them, so it befell them. In other words, one got his head chugged off and one was stored. Excuse me. And Pharaoh restored the chief butler to his office, and the chief baker he slew as Joseph has interpreted to him. But the chief butler forgot Joseph in the prison, although he had informed him what would befall him, and he did not remember to inform Pharaoh how Joseph had told him, for he forgot. Now we're going to enter into chapter 40 for a little bit. Now in those days, Pharaoh dreamed 2 dreams in one night. Now this is the reason for Joseph being hated of his brothers. See, we are swayed by spirits. We're swayed by spirits, our mind. See, you got something to tell us the Holy Spirit in the New Testament, and then next thing you know, we say, oh, the Spirit told me, or the Lord told me. It was not the Lord that told you. There was a spirit that told you many things. You got a spirit of lust. You's a lie. Ain't no such thing as a spirit of lust. You got a spirit of lying. There ain't no spirit as a spirit of lying. A man is drawn of his lust and enticed. When lust is conceived, look at it. Look at it. When it's conceived. When a lie is conceived, that's a lust. Anything we do that's detrimental to our neighbor, that's detrimental to his well-being, whether you stealing, killing, or destroying, has to be conceived. You have to see it. You have to think that it's beneficial to you. Just like in the days when they buried black towns and they flooded many rivers and built avenues and highways over things and even buildings in New York. Yes, and moved graves and everything because what? Their lust. To want to be the favorite people, 1948. To want to be the top dog down in SA in 1948. Their lust to want to be something you're not. So you put another person under. You hate them. You concoct lies. All these come when lust is conceived. It has to be Saul. She saw. Eve saw. She had to see. Then she lusted. Okay, let's go again. Now, for this reason, in those days Pharaoh dreamed 2 dreams in one night concerning a famine which was to be in all the land. And he woke from his sleep and called all the interpreters of the dream and that were in Egypt and the magicians, and told them his 2 dreams, and they were not able to declare them. Then the chief butler remembered Joseph and spake of him to the king, and he brought him forth from the prison, and he told them the 2 dreams before him. And he said before Pharaoh that his two dreams were one. And he said unto him, 7 years will come in which there will be plenty over all the land of Egypt. And after that 7 years of famine, such a famine hath not been in all the land. And he said in verse 4, now let Pharaoh appoint overseers in all the land of Egypt, and let them store up food in every city throughout the days of the years of plenty. And there will be food for the 7 years of famine, and the land will not perish through the famine, for it will be very severe. Now, we hear a lot of preppers, and we hear a lot of things, and we see the things that are happening around us. Many of us, we take it for granted. You cannot prepare for everything that should happen, but if you should live through it all, you should educate yourself to know what to do, how to purify water, how to build a makeshift house, how to dig in the ground and grow food. These things you should be practicing, and how to obey the command, statutes, and ordinances of the Most High, even the sacrifices that should come. You should saturate yourself in these things. The how-to, because you cannot be prepared for everything. You might be prepared for something, but then it might turn out totally different than what you expected. So in your mind, you fill your mind up with many things, many talents. You practice them while you're living, while you're here. Now, if you should be here during that time, that you should be able to know what to do in that time, whether to have a firearm and take it and learn to be proficient with it, or some type of combat fighting to learn to be proficient in it, or political stance that you should take to put the laws up and tell them, hey, this is not right what you're doing. You should be proficient in these things. This is preparing. Not just, I'm going to be in the woods and I got me a flashlight. You have a flashlight, what's going to happen? You don't need no light. If there's an enemy there or someone, they see that light, you're a goner. Because the first thing a soldier is taught to shoot at the light, to bomb the fire or the campground. There's somebody there. Verse 5, and I am gave Joseph favor, grace. He gave him grace and mercy in the eyes of Pharaoh. Some of you, you're so lost that you think grace is it's just given out like bubble gum. No. It says you have to believe something, to do something, to obtain something. Now, in eyes of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said to his servants, we shall not find such a wise and discreet man as this man, for the spirit of the I Am is with him. Because they knew who he was. They knew who God was, because they were taught by their father Ham. That's why you got the disciplines in Egypt. That's one of the reasons. And another reason is because Abraham was in the land. They were discussing among each other. Come on, you can get out of here talking about Egypt was here thousands of years ago and all that stuff. They are no older than Noah. Matter of fact, they're not even then. And he appointed him second in all his kingdom, and gave him authority over all Egypt, and caused him to ride on the second chariot of Pharaoh. And he clothed him with byssus garments, and put a gold chain upon his neck. And a herald came before him. Says, El Wibari. He called him a god. Now he placed a ring on his hand, and made him rule over all the house, and magnified him, and said unto him, only on the throne shall I be greater than thou. God was with him. And with that, we're going to say, peace. No matter how life goes, one thing I know.